Welcome to episode 4 of Fire on the Mountain. Today we wanted to talk to you about COVID cases finally dropping in our state, a check-in with our local PFLAG chapter following their most recent fundraiser, as well as a bombshell decision our state courts made that could re-enfranchise more than 60,000 voters statewide, and take you through a few of the most notorious ghost stories in western North Carolina. We'll also be speaking to Hendersonville native activist and Black historian Cauley about her work in the community and moving forward.
In an additional special segment, we'll cover what we learned at the City Engagement and Planning meeting on Tuesday, March 29th regarding the use of RAISE Act funds to connect the proposed Acosta Trail and Ocklawaha Greenway in community areas. As always, thank you so much for listening, and keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Like, how long are we gonna hear about this?
How long are we gonna? There's other news.
There is other news. We're gonna tell you all the other.
Here's some other news.
Here's some not rich people shit that we can talk about. Cool. Is that good? So, PFLAG. Just to give everybody a quick rundown about the history of the organization, it is a national organization, and there are loads of chapters all over the country. It was founded in 1972 with the simple act of a mother publicly supporting her gay son. PFLAG is the original family and ally organization. It's made up of parents, families, friends, and allies, uniting with people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and beyond. PFLAG is committed to advancing equality through its mission of support, education, and advocacy. PFLAG has more than 350 chapters and 200,000 supporters crossing multiple generations of American families in major urban centers, small cities, and rural areas. Our chapter here in Hendersonville and Flat Rock held their annual scholarship fundraiser with great barbecue from 1898 Waverly Inn and featured music from Tino Eno and Kevin Dolan. This year's event was held at Continuum Art here in Hendersonville, and I was fortunate enough to speak with Mike Burnett of PFLAG and Waverly Inn, who was able to share some details about the event that was widely regarded as a huge success for the organization. He said they recorded close to 60 in attendance, a number that continues to grow each year. They were able to host an auction online through 32auctions.com and raise money by auctioning off gift cards to our local breweries and businesses.
Yeah, and by the way, anyone interested in learning more about that website, they said that the process was super simple and that they made it real easy to receive bids on prizes they obtained from local merchants. Mike said they've had the silent auctions in person in the past, but the fundraiser last year had to be virtual, like most things, so that led them to this format, and they decided to keep it because it worked so well.
Yeah, and Mike also said this format is a way to allow bids to be placed from folks that weren't even at the event. Just participating remotely, which is a breakthrough for any local organization. And as we record this on March 29th, PFLAG has said that this was their biggest fundraiser yet, with over $2,000 gross donations. So PFLAG is always looking for ways to raise money, and they have monthly meetings for LGBTQ plus advocacy, support, and education. Those meetings are held the first Tuesday, and as of right now, they've begun some discussion for a Halloween warm-up fundraiser the Thursday before Halloween this year, which could maybe feature a drag performance to some live music. Mike also mentioned that they may be in the market for an 80s cover band, in case anyone may know what it is. So,
Raph, is there anything that you'd like to plug?
Shameless.
Either way, it's a great reason to bust out the leg warmers. So
yes, leg warmers, Lycra.
If only.
More details to come, y'all. Congratulations to PFLAG in Hendersonville for this incredible fundraising event. And we're going to be reaching back out to PFLAG to see how folks in the community can show their support for that organization as well.
That's awesome, and it's great to hear that PFLAG is getting some community support. I know for me personally, I don't know about for you, but PFLAG has been a huge part of my lifeline of support growing up queer in a small conservative town. Mm-hmm. So all love to PFLAG.
Yeah. I was always kind of solo dolo. I didn't really have any organizations or participate in organizations growing up because I thought everybody was terrible. So now here I am.
Yeah. That's the small town effect.
Yeah. And now here I am, 32 years old, and I'm like, wow, I get it now. Look at all y'all doing the thing; it makes sense. So
Yes.
let's start a podcast and help you grow.
Yeah. Hey, when did you go to your first like Pride March or Pride Rally?
It would have been, so I came out when I was 27, so my first Pride was 2018.
Okay.
28.
Did that help you feel like did you feel like you found your community?
No. It felt like, so we talk a lot about like rainbow capitalism, right? Like rainbow flags go in the windows for like a week and then they go away forever, or a month maybe if we're lucky. I kind of felt like everybody was there for the face paint and to like peddle their wares. Like, I mean, there were corporate tents.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm not going to use any names here, but there were like wireless providers that were setting up this.
I was just going to say no names, but.
but
what are they going to do? Sue us?
Wait, we can beep them out.
Yeah. Yes, perfect.
Yeah, you.
That's a bummer to me because my first Pride event was homecoming. It was a homecoming. I felt like I was among my weirdo, queer, loud, celebratory people.
Mm-hmm. Was that like a small thing or like a citywide thing or like a kid thing or what?
That was an Asheville Pride event that was focused on Prop 8, so that would have been in like 2013 or so.
Yeah.
That's right. It was small.
You're a little older than me.
I think. I'm 32.
When's your birthday?
August 17th.
August. Oh yeah, so you're September. Yeah, seven, right? August,
Ooh, yeah.
March 15th,
Sage
August 17th.
elder. Wait, did you just turn 32?
I just turned March 15th, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow. That makes a lot of sense because I'm so much wiser than you.
Yeah. Wisdom and abundance. Thank you for sharing it with me.
You're welcome. I do what I can. All right. So moving on to a less fun topic, probably. We wanted to talk to y'all today about some new reports from our county hospitals. On March 16th of this year, Henderson County's Pardee Hospital reported 0 COVID patients for the first time in almost exactly 2 years. Advent Health reported 0 patients on March 21st, just 5 days later. According to reporting by Rebecca Walter of the Times News on March 25th, this was still the case. Although this is wonderful news, Dr. Greg McCarty, Chief Medical Officer of Pardee UNC Healthcare, encourages the population to get vaxxed or boosted and to follow public health guidelines in the event of another surge or variant. He also mentioned that there is yet another new variant that may be headed our way soon. It's already reported in North Carolina. And he said to the Times News, quote, "This sort of cautious optimism will become our new norm as we navigate living with this virus. We've learned so much in the past 2 years that will help us prepare for and mitigate risks for future variants. And most importantly, we know that this virus and its variants impact the unvaccinated most severely. The single best step we can take is to get vaccinated in order to avoid hospitalization and severe illness." So a little bit of background is that the first time that Pardee Hospital identified COVID in one of its patients was March 23rd, 2020.
I remember that. That blew up. That was huge.
Yeah, and we had already shut down like almost a week prior, and I remember the sentiment being, is it ever gonna affect us?
Right.
And then it took us by storm.
It's like when you shut down and there's no cases, it's like, okay, so we're just, this is big government, big brother shutting us down. And then when there is a case, rather than be like, oh, the government was looking out for us, it's like, see, the shutdown means absolutely nothing.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Interestingly, Advent Health didn't have a reported case of COVID until over a month later on April 27th of 2020.
That is interesting. It's the same community. That's weird. 30 days. I feel like that that should right there tell you that people just were not, going in because they had symptoms, right?
That's the best that I can figure, or that we didn't understand what to be looking for yet. I do remember at the beginning of COVID that we were all very confused about what COVID looked like. Mm-hmm. And I guess it does still manifest in all kinds of different ways, but I thought that was certainly an unusual fact that there would be 2 hospitals in one county that were a month apart in reported cases, but maybe we can deep dive into that later. For now, the CDC has labeled Henderson County low risk, and we have been there for the last 4 weeks. If you'd like to keep up with that map from the CDC, it's updated every Thursday now. It used to be updated daily, but they changed that last week. It can be found by going to the Community Levels tab on the CDC's coronavirus page. Our neighboring counties of Transylvania, Polk, and Buncombe are also considered low risk at this time. I don't want to say this stuff about the metrics. People know how, right? Or is that interesting?
So, I mean, COVID burnout is real. I mean, people are tired of hearing about it. Obviously, we're ready to move on. So speaking of government, on Monday, yesterday as we record, a North Carolina trial court struck down a state law barring individuals with past felony convictions who are currently on community supervision, which is probation or post-release supervision, from registering to vote.
Woo!
Yes. The decision immediately enfranchises over 56,000 North Carolinians, and some reports have it estimated at over 60,000 North Carolinians who have completed their incarceration and are currently living in their communities on supervision. The ruling comes after a trial was held last August, during which the trial court issued a preliminary injunction allowing individuals on community supervision to register to vote. That was then overturned on an appeal. Go ahead.
I have a question about the terms of community supervision. If they're released without any supervision requirement, are they still allowed?
I mean, you're a felon, you're a felon. So
Right.
When you're a felon, you are going to be released on community supervision. You cannot come out of the system without some form of supervision. This specifically is referring to an appeal. So I don't, there's a lot of detail. I'm also not a lawyer. I'm just, sharing what's been reported. But I think obviously this isn't, like, there's still going to be process here. But we're on our way,
That's great. This is a great place to start.
Exactly. Yeah. And in this 2-1 decision, the court outlined a long history of racial discrimination against black voters, which was critical for the case. The panel highlighted that the state first disenfranchised individuals with prior felony convictions all the way back in 1877 during an aggressive, coordinated effort to block black North Carolinians from voting. And
that was in 1877, so that was antebellum and Jim Crow.
Yeah, I mean, in the following decades, individuals with prior felony convictions were still denied equal voting rights because North Carolinians clearly associated the expansion of voting rights for people with felony convictions with the expansion of voting rights for African Americans.
There it is.
There it is. This overlap of voter suppression and discrimination tactics has resulted in stark disparities between black and white voters in North Carolina in the present day. In total, 1.24% of the entire African American voting age population in North Carolina are denied the franchise due to felony probation, parole, or post-release supervision, whereas only 0.45% of the white voting age population are denied the franchise.
So that's almost a full percent difference.
Yeah, and because of that, the court concluded that the state's felony disenfranchisement law has both the intent and effect of discriminating against black voters in violation of the North Carolina state constitution.
Furthermore, the law, quote, interferes with the exercise of the fundamental right of voting and operates to disadvantage a suspect class, end quote, without serving any valid state interest. So because of these factors, the panel has permanently blocked the state from enforcing the law, thereby allowing individuals currently on community supervision to register to vote. So what exactly does this mean for felons who are currently on community supervision? It means that you can go register to vote.
Yes, you heard that correctly. If you're wherever you are and you're listening to this and you're presently on community supervision, you can register to vote because your voice is just as important as anyone else's, and the unconstitutional violation of your right to cast a ballot and be heard was never okay. This ruling deserves as much circulation and coverage as possible, and we encourage our listeners with friends, family, acquaintances, or just in general, anybody who knows anyone presently on community supervision to share this information and celebrate the opportunity to bring their valuable, powerful voice to the polls to ensure a more informed and participatory democracy.
So we can try our best to lighten the mood a little bit with your guide to the ghosts of the Asheville, Hendersonville area of Western North Carolina. Very spooky. If y'all know me, you guys know that I love true crime and spooky stuff. This is a palate cleanser for me. If it's not for you, sorry.
It's always news, It's just like we
News.
We said it's a culture, lifestyle, and community podcast. So like we're getting into the culture bit. I don't really particularly believe in the supernatural, but I'm fascinated with the romance of supernatural.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The news is so important, and there's been a lot of it lately for us to share, which is wonderful and exciting. And I also am with you. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the cultural pieces of what make up our community.
Mm-hmm.
So to jump in, the Battery Park Apartments in Asheville, supposedly it's haunted by the ghost of a young female hotel guest who was brutally murdered here in the 1930s. And there are also supposedly 2 male suicide victims who jumped from the roof and are sometimes seen plummeting toward the ground before vanishing in midair, to the point where the Asheville Police Department occasionally receives calls from horrified witnesses who say they see these men jumping from the roof.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. There's also the Grove Park Inn, which I think is one of the first ghosts that I learned about here. Her name is Alice. She was a maid who died in a fall down a staircase. She is usually seen in a lavender dress, and she sometimes is seen with the Battle Mansion ghost, who was also a maid. The Grove Park Inn's ghost is generally called the Pink Lady, and they say that she walks around the golf course. There's also one in the Biltmore estate, which...
Only one?
Right? I feel like one is hard to believe. I feel like there must be
There's
several.
There's no way. There's got to be, oh, God.
At least 7, right?
Think about all the people that died just building the Biltmore estate.
Right. Yeah. So rumors are that there are numerous ghosts, but the one who is consistent is a woman dressed in black who appears on the 2nd floor. She is reported there consistently. Nobody seems to know who she is, but there's also a maid who offers visitors champagne from a tray and then vanishes, and she startles visitors sometimes. So like tour guides and people who work on the grounds have heard reports from visitors that a maid came to them, offered them a glass of champagne, and then disappeared.
Oh my God. Okay, hold up. Spooky. This is a potentially very liberating moment for me, because I think I've just realized that not only have I never in my life been to Biltmore Estate for Halloween. I've been to Biltmore loads of times, but I've never been on Halloween, and I'm thinking like that would be bananas.
Oh, you guys, write in. This is 1987.
Yes, right. Please send a post.
Write us a letter. Stop. No, but if you think it would be fun for us to do bonus content at the Biltmore on Halloween, we will totally do that. I'm signing Raph up. I don't know if he's cool with this or not, but we'll totally do it.
Hell yeah, I'm cool with it.
The last ghost that I wanted to talk about is one of my favorites. It's a woman named Helen who haunts the wooden bridge on Town Mountain. Mm-hmm. It's called Helen's Bridge, and this bridge is terrifying. If y'all haven't been there, you have?
I've never been there. No, I've always wanted to go. I've heard about this I've been in North Carolina 15 years now, but I've heard about it the whole time. I've never been.
Yes, it is absolutely infamous. The story is that Helen hanged herself in the early 1900s. She had just heard that her daughter had died in a fire, so her spirit is tragic, and she is considered a dark entity, and it has led Helen's Bridge to become kind of a popular spot for seances and like ritual magic. Mm-hmm. So I feel like Helen is kind of watching over our new generation of baby witches in Asheville, which I love. And I think that there are a million more ghost stories to tell, but those are all the ones that we have time for today. If y'all know of ones that we missed, send them to us, because I would love to start compiling some spooky listener tales about things that have happened to you around Asheville and Hendersonville area.
Yeah, some of these people have been out camping out there in the woods somewhere.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll speak with Crystal Cauley.
This episode is brought to you by Oklawaha Brewing Company. Oklawaha Brewing is a nano brewery and taproom committed to brewing high-quality beer in a vibrant atmosphere, and is conveniently located in downtown Hendersonville. Drop in sometime and check it out.
Crystal Cauley is an activist, historian, artist, mother, birth doula, and community member. She's been profiled in Urban News and Bold Life and on WLOS and featured in articles from the Laurel of Asheville and Mountain Express. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Can we start by telling us a little bit about your history of advocacy and what draws you to the work that you do now?
Yes. My history of advocacy begins when I created a panel that discussed excessive use of force, dealing with policing, the fact about what happened to George Floyd. And so I wanted community leaders, people that I know, to share their stories, their narrative about what happens, especially dealing with the police. It was titled Speak Out Loud, Voices of Unity.
So what came next after the panel? What was the next thing for you?
Many requests to do more panels, also to get more involved with social justice work. I also began to use the art of spoken word poetry to bring to light things that are going on. So my first poem was actually in memory of Ahmaud Arbery. And so, and I performed that live. So I was asked to do, or to help out with, and it was also online. It was a Facebook event. And I was with a writer he's known as Tony Robles. He asked me to be, involved in this event, and that was no problem, of course, but I also shared my poetry for the first time with the world, and so that's what began my journey with spoken word poetry.
Yeah, what was it like to kind of share that for the first time?
Oh, empowering.
That's amazing. And how long have you been writing?
For the last 2 years.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I definitely want to give a shout out to Tony that you just mentioned too, because he's an incredible writer as well. And actually, the first time I'd ever spoken to him or met him was the Juneteenth event last year in the park that you put together.
There was also nonprofits that was represented there, especially I like to say Grow Our Own Teachers of Color, which is a great organization to shine more light on having more teachers of color come back to Henderson County and teach. So their college education, a part of it will be paid for, and then the agreement, from what I understand, is that they'll come back to Henderson County and teach.
Okay, so trying to incentivize getting teachers of color into our schools.
Yes.
That's amazing work.
Yeah.
So it was Connie Knight. She's a well-known artist here. She's also known as Constanza Knight, but I call her Connie. And then John Ariati. They're both on Facebook, and they're both very active with Grow Our Own Teachers of Color. Also, Smart Start Partnership for Children was they've always been present in all of my events, giving out free books for children, parenting skills and education workshops.
Awesome. And speaking of education, there is no doubt in my mind that a lot of the work that you have been doing has been an education for your daughter. And I always see her at the events. She's right there. She's
Always.
Watching mom. She's soaking it up like a sponge. It's incredible to see. How has that experience been for her overall, do you think, being a part of this?
Well, I started young with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a community center here that's actually now my church. So it was called Emmanuel's Corner, and it was ran by Etta Robinson. So it's on First Avenue. That's where my church is located, same building. That's where I began my volunteer work and really interacting with my community. Mm-hmm. So at Emmanuel's Corner, I would bring her to events, to the things that I did as an entrepreneur. So she's been around for a long time, since she was 4, 5.
Wow.
She's very grounded. April 7th will mark 1 year of her lock journey. So the locks in her hair, some people may say they look like dreadlocks, but it's actually called locks, LOCS. So that is a spiritual journey, and it's a very cultural journey too. So she's very well-rounded, very grounded. So, and she's so young, but we started her out young with giving back, volunteering, helping out. So,
Yeah. What do you want her to take away from seeing you get involved at the level you are?
well, I want her to take away a sense of identity, to be a strong black woman, and that carries a lot of weight. But it also carries, I feel, a responsibility too, to speak up when you need to. And of course, like you just said, I have had some very uncomfortable situations that I have brought light to by asking questions why we don't have this, or why are things still the way they are in our city. So, it's worth it. It's so worth it to start them out young. So for me, that's some of the important things that I look at.
I think that is particularly powerful, that she gets to kind of be raised in community, right? Like she gets to be, we expect to see her at these things. She's part of the crew of people that come to all the events, and I feel like it is such a good example for other families to see you acknowledge her as a whole person and a person who can be involved and make changes and be a part of the discussion too. I just really respect it. I respect the engagement level that you've taught her to have.
Oh, thank you.
So, what are you working on right now? Today, day in the life, Crystal Cauley. What's something you're doing right now?
Well, I got to share really great news with you guys, and that is I had the opportunity to finally be a birth doula. I had my first birth doula experience at Spartanburg Regional Hospital. With this doula journey, I had at the time, it's no longer in business, but it was Homegrown Babies of Asheville. I was given the opportunity to have a scholarship, which paid for my doula courses. And so that's also a part of my advocacy work. And as a black birth worker, to go into the community, which that's what it was really intended for, to come back to this community and help, especially women of color, learn that they have choices, and to have that advocacy in that birthing room. Because, with the numbers that we have, so many black women are dying in hospitals while they're giving birth. Last night, right? I told them, I said, look, because they were asked by the nurse, what do you want to do with your placenta? Because you can donate the placenta to help burn victims and a lot of other wonderful, great benefits, right? By agreeing to donate the placenta. And I said, well, okay, that's wonderful things. Have you two considered keeping the placenta? And they were like, what? You can do that? I said, yes. I said, let me look up a placenta business right here in the area, because I like to keep things local. As you guys know, I like to support local businesses. Yeah. So I'm in Spartanburg, so I want to support a local business. I found one that closed at 7 p.m. This was around 6 o'clock when they're coming in there with the paperwork to sign, da-da-da-da-da. Called that business owner. She said, what it would be to pick it up. And what the fees would be if they chose to have it encapsulated. If they chose to have, you can make different things out of it, as you guys know. And so they agreed to it. And so that it's just giving, parents that option and that choice. And they lit up like light bulbs. They're like, we can save this and, have it encapsulated. And I was like, yes, And with that doula thing, right? With having those options, if I would have known, I can say this, I know for a fact, with my son and with my daughter, if I would have known those things, I probably would have did the same thing, but I didn't have that education. So
that's the biggest hope that we can have for birth workers, is that birthing people get to know all of their options, and they get to be in control of their bodies and their decisions and the ultimate outcomes of what happens.
Yes, so I'm doing the doula work presently, and what else am I doing? Also on May 15th, which is a Sunday at 10:30 a.m., I will have a program, and it's at the Universalist Church on Canoga. So on May 15th, Sunday at 10:30, I will have a program, and it's a tribute about the struggle that Black women have went through, but it's a performing arts event. So there'll be speakers, but mainly performing arts, dancers, music, and so it's something that you don't want to miss. I'll also have a poem that I'm doing to the instrumental James Brown song "It's a Man's World." It's really creative, and it pays homage to, I like to say homage, but respect to those who were killed by the police, unarmed. So it's wonderful. And also I'm going to read that poem by Langston Hughes, "No Crystal Stair." So you don't want to miss that May 15th at 10:30. That's definitely going down. And then at the same place on June 4th at 2 p.m., that day we'll have a 2-hour workshop. And we're going to talk about Black history in Hendersonville, past, present, and future, but also the state of Black Hendersonville and the issues that we do have and how we can solve them. So that's going to be 2 wonderful things. I have another one.
Yeah, that's all of them.
Oh, okay. So with the People's Museum, there's an exhibit that will be there. It's in honor of the Kingdom of the Happy Land. And so the artist that I've worked with, Diamond Cash, we did 3 paintings that honor the Kingdom of the Happy Land. And so that was sponsored by the Arts Council of Henderson County. So it's a beautiful exhibit. It's true history. So that's something I'm definitely going to be shining light on as well. We'll have more, of course. We'll probably have a fall festival community event again at Sullivan's Park, because I want to celebrate 50 years. It's been 50 years of history for the Green Meadows community. So since urban renewal had came in, some people call it Negro removal, because urban renewal, it was something that happened that touched many Black neighborhoods and families across the United States, where Black families were moved out of their homes, and different things happened, such as like the federal public housing was built in place of their homes being destroyed. And so here in Hendersonville, we had 64 homes that was destroyed. They were told, well, your houses are uninhabitable, because back then people, especially on that side of town, some did not have electricity or running water. And so they were, there was actually a committee formed. It was they were about relocation. So to help people agree, for a small amount of money to move out of their home that they owned and their land for, pennies, basically. And so where I get the 50 years from is that that's when urban renewal came in 1972. So we do the math, 72 up to now is 50 years. So we need to celebrate the community. Last year we did a wonderful job. Raphael was there for the annual community fest. But the good thing about that was that it was pointed out that was the first time in 16 years that the community came together for that kind of event, a community event.
It was a huge turnout.
Mm-hmm. It was great.
Yeah. There were a couple hundred people there by the end of the day.
It's great. So it's like, I'm touching on a lot of things, social justice issues, things that actually happened here. I mentioned the Kingdom of the Happy Land, historic stuff, social justice stuff like urban renewal that actually happened and touched the city of Hendersonville. Why am I bringing this up? Because you know what? My footprints are here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a writer, so my footprints are here. My DNA is here.
Yeah.
For many of us as African Americans, we teach our children, right? Get your education, leave here. And it's always followed with, don't come back. Get out of here. And it's like, this place is beautiful. The same way especially a lot of those that have that resilience built up and they say, oh, I love Hendo. You don't see too many people of color saying they love Hendo. Let's be honest. Hendo this, Hendo that. I love Hendo too. My ancestors were like the first that were brought here. Proven fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew that.
So when did you find that out? When did you learn that?
Probably last year. And I had my daughter with me too.
Wow.
And okay, let me get back to this first of all. So we tell our kids and stuff, to leave here and stuff and get away from here. And I'm like, why are we running from
Your
our own
own
home?
Yeah.
Why are we? Why do we continue to run? Why not stay and give back and help out? It's not just a black thing for me, but I love all people. So why can't we just stay here and help out and love all people of all races and maybe yes, go get that education and see a different perspective on things, but you can bring it back here, teach, those cultural experiences that you have, come back and share and talk to people about them, especially the children. That's what's important. So with that experience, it led me to learn more about my history. I did the ancestry DNA, the African ancestry DNA, and I was able to search my mother's side, which is where my family is from. My maternal side, they're all from Henderson County. So my father's side is all from Johns Island and Charleston, South Carolina. So it's so much wealth of knowledge up here for me. And that was actually a article done by Bold Life magazine. They had my daughter and we were standing in front of the historic courthouse. And so it's a beautiful article if you look it up.
It's interesting that you say that they chose that site for y'all to tell your story for the picture in Bold Life, because you'd actually had experience, maybe not so much a positive experience with that specific historic courthouse. Mm-hmm. Would you care sharing that experience with the listeners? What happened there?
Well, my experience, I complained because there's not enough African American exhibits that showcase our history in that courthouse. Well, in that heritage museum, actually. And so I complained, and then I finally reached out to a commissioner. I was invited to come. This was September the 4th of last year, to come in person and talk about, the things I had said, what I just said. And so the board is all white. They didn't share, of course, the passion and the things that I said as the same level of concern. Talking about why is my heritage not in there, because there's so much that's missing. And so I was I was told that when they have the space, they would consider it. So I wasn't happy, but with that response. But I was happy that I complained about it, and I did something about it. Whereas in the past, I did used to complain, and a lot of times we as African Americans, especially here in Hendersonville, we complain to each other, but not to the source. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I went to them and complained. Not complained, but just having my voice heard and my concerns, because we pay taxes here too. And you have a few little things in there, but yet you have this big room dedicated to the Confederacy. I mean, I'm not saying there's issues with the Confederacy. I'm just saying, is more to Henderson County than what's
you
presented.
can say there's issues with the
I
Confederacy.
think we're.
That's safe. This is
And it is a huge room full of Confederate trinkets, their boots, their uniforms,
Right.
their knives.
and they got fucking guys that walk around in those outfits.
Yes.
In those
Yeah.
Confederate outfits. They role
Yes.
play with the muskets and all that. They still do that.
Yes.
Well, that room was dedicated actually by a judge. That it was
Yes,
Judge
it's
Knight.
Judge Fox's.
Oh, Judge Fox. I'm
Fox's
sorry, Judge Fox.
Private collection.
That's correct.
Weirdly.
Private collection.
Yes. Actually, the Confederate stuff, all the way up until the stuff from Vietnam was all his private collection. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say this: it's history, it's educational, right? But there's still a lack of diversity in that heritage museum. So
Yes, and you can't have half of the history. You can't have the Confederate history and celebrate that and want everybody to be okay with that, and then not include the rest of the community.
well, I was asked a question when I went there. I went there with a friend who helps me do activism work here. And we said, at this courthouse, slaves were sold here. And records were kept in that old courthouse. Because, we were considered personal property. So slave owners pay taxes on us. And that's where you went to pay your taxes. And so, the records, this is where a lot of the auctioning happened. And so bring out those records. And there's ways that you can address issues that are very sensitive, as many museums have done across the United States, even the one in Washington, D.C. There's many ways that you can address this history and keep it, on an educational level, so all history can be known. You can't just have it one-sided.
Right, and that's a good point too, that we're not the first history museum to encounter this. There are models and there are existing institutions that have been able to make this work, and to hear voices that say, I'm not represented, and for their response to be, let's fix that, and not, we'll consider it if we have time later, which is the response that you got essentially.
Yeah, and that time has never came, and I doubt it will. I watched an old video about Hendersonville, and in the video, it was on YouTube. I think it's just titled Hendersonville, North Carolina, and the person speaking, he's giving out education. He says that the buildings, the roads, they were all built by slaves that were once here. So, there's ways that you can, and a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
So
it makes sense.
Right. But those men that built so many buildings here that still exist, there are some pictures. I don't think they're during slavery time, but or before 1865. But a lot of the pictures that I've seen with the buildings, you'll see a lot of black men, working. That's all you mainly do, you see anyway. So why not have those pictures out and just show them some respect, to show our contribution to this city. The artist, Diamond Cash, she painted, it's called The Legacy. And so it shows the shape of Henderson County that's been uplifted by all hands of color. And so that's a beautiful mural. So, things are changing. Mm-hmm. So to have that idea and that piece of art that was just going to just be private, it was just going to stay on my wall of my apartment. To have it move like from the wall of my apartment to the actual wall of a new museum, I think that's just nothing but God. I had a problem with the Heritage Museum here that basically, kicked me to the curb, doesn't acknowledge me. And then to go from, then to have a painting that I had commissioned to go on the new museum's wall at the entrance. It sends chills sometimes, but it's
poetic justice.
What happens.
The museum turns you down, so it's just like, well, I guess the museum is just going to be my living room. And you just take a piece of your life in your living room, and it becomes this enormous, beautiful piece in a museum. That's incredible.
And that one piece has opened up so many doors for both of us women. That piece also brought out more things dealing with activism here in ways in Hendersonville. That one piece. Because I was just wanting to have a piece of art that would showcase the history of Henderson County. Mm-hmm. And then more things came from that one piece. Like ideas, people wanted to discuss it.
Yeah, so. Are you going to have, with that mural, will they have something that you've written up that explains the meaning behind the piece? Because what you shared at the event over the weekend was really beautiful. That it's drawn from all different pieces of your life.
Yes. And then it's a lot of coverage has been done on that piece already.
That's great.
It's available online. So
one of the names that we tossed around for the podcast was, "Why don't you just move?" Because I feel like what we hear a lot is people saying, well, if it sucks so bad, just leave.
Right.
And I feel like everything that you've shared with us today kind of echoes that sentiment of, like, we have a community that's worth fighting for and a history that's worth fighting for. And it's an uphill battle. But, like on a personal note, the first time that I heard your name was because you stood up to the county commissioners and said, this isn't okay. And that garnered enough attention that I heard about it without even knowing you. So the waves that you're making are rippling through the whole community. I'm watching the change happen from the work that you're doing. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you. I mean, I feel like it's like I said at one of the meetings I had, it's a personal responsibility. This history has been lost. And see, traditionally, African Americans, we speak our history. So we pass it down orally, right?
Right.
It's not really written down. You can't find books or volumes of history books in our library in the reference section. It's just not going to happen. We have maybe one book, really. That's not, you can't even get it in print anymore. So I said to myself, I can do it. I will do it. I'm going to step out. I'm going to use art, that one piece that we just discussed, The Legacy. That's what we titled it. That one piece of art, I'm going to use that as a preservation tool to use to hold this art, to hold this history up so it can be remembered, because a lot of the younger the younger generation, they're not sitting down talking with their grandparents and things about the history. It's just not being passed down, or and it's dying. So as our elders are dying, that history is dying with them. And so what way can we reach the young generation as well as preserve history? So I said, well, we can do it with art and with having like art exhibits and events, cultural events. That's something that we can do. Now, at first I was scared and I didn't know if it was going to work out. And some people had reservations about it because it's like you're bringing up the past, and I'm not bringing up, I'm not trying to bring up the bad things. I'm trying to bring all of it up because we need to know, and the children need to know. Yeah. And so I wanted to point that out. I took it as a personal responsibility and to, have something to pass off to my daughter, because like I said a couple of minutes ago, we teach our children to leave and don't come back and things like that. But for those children that are still here in the school system, that can't leave, they're stuck just like a lot of kids are right now. Well, where's the Black history at? Well, how can I find it? And just recently, we just had I wasn't a part of it. I mean, some things I've done is on this website, and it's called blackhistories.org. So, and that has a lot of Black history here in Henderson County. So that's a wonderful website. And so, like, Gaines, for is the new museum that's going to open up this spring. Gaines, like the 2-year celebration of Black History Month. Mm-hmm. Those are things. The diversity committee that was formed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we're trying.
I have tremendous gratitude for you and everything that you do.
Do you feel like there's anything specific that you want our listeners to know about or to be aware of or to share with their friends or people who maybe don't understand the importance of our local history and their community?
Well, a call to action would be to support events by... At this point, all of my events have always been free. I don't feel like there's a price you can put on them, because I want children there too. So a call to action when there's an event, like let people know, because there's so much value in those events that we've had that you've been a part of too, participating in. And so to mention it, like if you work at a school, mention it and have the teachers come together and say, yes, we do see a lack of XYZ. So we do see a lack of diversity or a lack of the way we present African American history. Mm-hmm. So what can we do to change that? Maybe we can get some people to come in and speak, and we can do it from a different perspective, like using art. What about using music? What about using poetry? There's many different ways, that we can do things as a call to action. And so, like, I organized something with the Green Meadows community, and it's at the 7th Avenue Community Garden. So we'll be out there bringing that garden back to life, because there's so many people that poured their hearts and souls into that garden. And so it kind of has been sitting there for the last 4 years. Understandably, the last 2 years due to COVID. And so, it's all about coming together, volunteering, and, growing vegetables again and helping those that need food. That's one way. It's local, it's right there.
And if people want to get involved and help with that community garden, how can they find out how to do that?
Well, they can email me.
Perfect.
So at bbnofwnc@gmail.com. So that's B as in boy, B as in boy, N as in Nancy, of WNC@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for your time today, Crystal. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Oh, I'm also on Facebook. So you'll see me with my head wrap on. Wait, no, not that profile picture. Actually, you'll see me, and then I have the Blue Ridge Mountains in the back. So I'm also reachable by by Facebook Messenger. I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
I have one more thing. Mm-hmm. Do you have a Venmo?
No, I don't have a Venmo. I have Cash App, though.
A Cash App. You want to drop that Cash App?
Sure. It's Voices Matter. So it's the money symbol sign, and then Voices, so VOICES Matter, MATTER. That's my Cash App.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I thought, obviously a lot of what we're talking about takes a lot of work, mm-hmm. and a lot of time that work, nobody's getting paid to do it. And, sometimes people just don't know. They got a lot going on. They can't show up. They don't have time to sit down and write an email and read through follow-up. So maybe sometimes just throwing some money out there helps a little bit, just to help cover some overhead and everything. So,
well, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Thanks for being
here.
Thank
you so much, Crystal.
Oh, well, thank you.
One of our sponsors today is the Honey House of Vintage, owned by our dear friend Mariah. The Honey House of Vintage features clothing and accessories from the 1950s to 2000 for all styles, subcultures, and body types. Open noon to 5 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday. Light tailoring and alterations and consignment available by appointment. Find us on Facebook or call 828-388-5373 for more info. Mention the ad for 10% off purchase.
But this week we're this week Gina and I actually both went out and attended the public input meeting that the city had for the Above the Mud. We talked about this in the previous episode. And rather than do the T9 word segment, we were able to take a moment to have a sidebar with Matthew Manley. It was an incredible meeting. The turnout was phenomenal. The input was phenomenal. It was a great time. And
It was phenomenal.
it was phenomenal. So here's that interview.
Hey, I'm Gina. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I'd love to hear what you guys are talking about. Stay educated myself.
So, who are you? What do you do? Where are we? And what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm Matthew Manley, the planning manager for the city of Hendersonville. We're currently at the city operations building at 305 William Street for the public meeting for what's been dubbed the Above the Mud project, which is a greenway improvement project. Has a portion of which would be a connection from the proposed or future Yakusta Trail to the existing Ocklawaha Trail, and then another phase of it which is improving a portion of the existing Ocklawaha Trail that is prone to flooding, and then extending the improvements that are proposed for 7th Avenue streetscape project.
So that was interesting. I saw that, and there was phase 1, 2, and 3, and we're including phase 2 and 3 of improving 7th Avenue streetscape. Could you explain why that's part of this project?
Yeah, so I think it's all about making connections, and you'll also see that on the maps we're highlighting that the South Grove sidewalk connection, which is a separate project, but when we're looking at, all right, we want to connect Yakusta Trail in downtown, and 7th Avenue is kind of a sub-district of downtown. We need to be people to be able to connect to those districts and then along those trails from their neighborhoods. And so really about connecting 7th Avenue all the way down to where the intersection is with the Ocklawaha. So that's why both those phases were included to make that full connection.
So Above the Mud is improving, or rather completing phase 2 and 3 of 7th Avenue, and then it's moving the Ocklawaha Greenway above the mud, and then it's the Mud Creek Greenway, which is going to connect the Ocklawaha Greenway to the Yakusta Trail.
That's it.
Awesome. So what kind of turnout are you seeing? How does that meet with expectations?
So so this is actually my first, so I've been on the planning staff for a little over a year. So this is my first public meeting that was just a little more general in nature. I mean, it's a very specific topic, but it's, there's kind of this drop-in style public meeting. It's not a planning commission meeting. It's not a city commission meeting. And so I honestly didn't know what to expect, but I didn't have huge expectations for, this is going to interest so many people and they're all going to come out. So I've been absolutely overwhelmed. I just counted, and we're like at 105 and counting with attendees.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? Yes. I mean, the room, like right when it started, it was just packed.
I remember
We're prompt people.
I was
20 minutes before it started, it was full. So
I remember
I'm really happy,
right whenever I came, I tried to get early because I was thinking it was going to be really busy, and I signed in and there's only one person above me, and then I looked around and I was like, well, I guess maybe it's not going to be so busy. But immediately you were like, whoa, looks like we're going to have a good turnout. And at that point there were 8 or 10 people in the room,
right.
And you seemed
I was already excited. Yeah.
So
no, I at one point I was just like, this is overwhelming. This is crazy.
It's awesome though.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask what from the people that have come out and come up and asked you what seems to be overwhelming feedback, questions, what's coming at you?
Yeah, so there's people are really have been putting some thought into this, and so there's a lot of questions that are more design level questions that we haven't gotten into right now. We're just like, this is a concept, this is a good idea, we feel like it's feasible, but the specifics of how we're going to control flooding onto the trail, or what we're going to do to improve the section of Oklawaha that floods. Is it going to be a boardwalk? What are we going to do to the crossings with streets? Is there going to be surface crossings? Can you build a bridge over South Main Street? All these kind of like very detailed questions that we're not to that phase yet, but it does help. A lot of environmental impact questions. It does help us at this stage to say, okay, this is what people care about. When we get into the design phase, these are the things that we need to look at and make sure that we're paying attention to, and make sure that when we come back and we have more details, as the phases of the project move forward, that we're able to address those concerns to people that have shown up and will likely show up again to learn more. So it's been really helpful to get that feedback. I wish I could provide, all the answers, but one of the things that I try to, in approaching community engagement, as I've, kind of moved through my career, it's easy. Can be a tendency as someone who's on staff, who's, facing these problems and trying to come up with solutions and looking at our city every day, to this tendency to, I have this answer, or I have this solution. But to take a step back from that and to recognize, well, the people who live in these neighborhoods, who, walk these trails or whatever it may be, they have this perspective that's super valuable. And so reaching out to the community to let them plan the project and provide the solutions is something I've gained experience with through my career to be able to really open up to that. And so starting earlier in the process and saying, all right, we are engaging the community at the beginning of this before we claim to have all the answers, is really important to guiding the final outcomes.
That's super exciting to hear. That's like the dream. Like seeing everybody out there and talking about, like, my house is on those maps.
Yeah.
My neighbors were here.
Right.
Like business owners who are affected were here. It's just everybody who's I got it too.
Yeah. Plan with, not for, is kind of
Yes.
that's the mantra.
And I feel like we're moving towards that in like all kinds of fields too, which is such an exciting, like, ground up shift.
Yeah.
For those environmental questions that people are asking, are there studies that y'all are already, like, is there already research that's around for y'all to use, or do you have to do new studies? Or
so environmental, there's some really good resources that's maintained by different agencies that are statewide agencies. Biodiversity maps, where you can really hone in on areas that have really rich species, really strong habitats for very diverse range of plants and animals. And so we can go to those maps today. We look at them on a regular basis when we're evaluating development impacts. So there are resources that we can tap into already. If we are awarded federal funds, then we will have to produce environmental reviews as part of the management of those funds.
Okay.
So there would be some additional studies that would have to be done to show that we're either not having an impact or mitigating impacts. And that environmental, that's a broad range. Covers a lot of ground: historic resources, social justice, all types of topics are covered under that environmental.
So are there parts of the, like, grant award that include that type of study? Like, is that why you would have to go back and find out that it meets those? Or is there a general?
There would be some reporting that would be, my understanding is that there would be some reporting that would be required as part of the requirements. So once you're awarded the grant, you still have to meet certain expectations in terms of reporting back. And so, any of these I-26 widening, these major projects, they all have to do those same types of, anywhere in the country that's getting federal grants have to meet their standards for environmental review. So
Gotcha.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't have anything, but I certainly appreciate you letting us ambush you.
Hell yeah. This is
I
awesome.
enjoy it. I get a lot of
Like,
energy
that
from
guy
this
knows
kind of
what he's
stuff.
talking
So,
about.
well, I try at least to pretend for a little bit. So
It is officially beer 30, so
Yeah.
thank you. It's
All
literally
right.
beer 32.
Super appreciate you.
yeah, and fire on the mountain. Right?
Yes. YouTube it.
That's our show for today. Thank you all so much for listening.
We appreciate the time that you give to the podcast, and if you would like to support us, then you can donate to the podcast.
Anything that you can give is so appreciated.
Yes.
And even more than that, listening, sharing, giving us your feedback.
And we encourage anybody that has any feedback about timing, length, content, interviews. If you guys have anybody that you think would make a great guest on our podcast, then we are super open to trying to get them on here, keep these conversations rolling. And you can submit your feedback to us on our Gmail account, which is fireonthemtnpod@gmail.com. Big surprise there.
Our Patreon is patreon.com/fireonthemountainpod. Thank y'all so much.
Cool. Is that good? Gina's never seen Iron Giant.